It's hard to lose somebody that you love so much.
Fred's brief life is so interesting because he had a high degree of self-acceptance about who he was.
Didn't want a label. Wanted to wake up in the morning and say, who am I going to be today?
The masculine and feminine together are sometimes reflected so completely in the body of one person. It's as if they have two spirits.
Half woman, half man, they call it nutley. He goes, oh, so cool, I'm a nutley.
It was so horrifying and tragic to me to think this beautiful kid reduced to this.
In the life of this place we call America, there is nothing more traditional than two-spirit people.
We were getting married here long before it was a glimmer in the eye of Stonewall.
He really wasn't breaking rules. He was simply trying to be himself, and bless him for it.
The place where two discriminations meet is a dangerous place to live.
Fred Martinez demonstrated with others like him that gender identity, sexual orientation, and biological sex fall on spectrums, and that acceptance in societies ranges from reverence to murder. So what is Two-Spirit? Two-Spirit is the modern umbrella term to denote an American Indian who does not fit into the male-female heterosexual spectrum. It replaces the European given name Bardash. Bardash roots in Persian, which means slave or kept boy, and eventually it made its way into French and Spanish to derogatorily describe a passive male homosexual. The Spanish conquerors, European traders, and the missionaries saw two-spirits as sodomists, violating their Christian principles of absolute gender and sex. This ethnocentric bias, combined with economic desire for the resources natives possessed, set the conflict theory in motion. Biological sex and the ways people engaged in sexual activity were mostly not a concern to American Indians. The important part was how each person fulfilled a socio-economic role based on their gender identity. The term two-spirit might be new to some, but modern society is familiar with some of its conjugates: genderqueer, gender-fluid, pan-gendered, and transgendered. These are terms that reference a person's gender identity. It's important to note that both then and now, gender identity is not the same as sexual orientation. Gender identity is socially constructed, with American Indian gender roles fulfilling both a symbolic interaction and structural functional aspect of culture, economics, and society. Two-spirits were seen as possessing a wholeness of woman and man, which allowed them to be somewhat superhuman in ability and thinking. A tribe's livelihood centered around two things: the spiritual interaction of the group with nature, and gendered activities for economics and social status. Because two-spirits embodied both worlds, having a two-spirit among the tribe was very important for spiritual reasons and for mediating between gender roles. Behavior, clothing, activities, likes and dislikes. For whatever was the gender norm for each tribe, a person who showed a strength in one gender that didn't match their biological sex was a two-spirit. Third and fourth genders consisted of people who held one biological sex, but didn't gender identify with either male or female. Rather, they are a blend of the two, thus existing as another being altogether, occupying third and fourth genders. For the large part, American Indian culture never sought to eradicate or punish two-spirits. Instead, two-spirits held special places in society.
In Navajo teaching in the old traditional world, there were four basic genders. The first one was that women are the first gender because Navajo is a matrilineal society. Men is the second gender, and third gender is the Natle, born as a male person but function in the role of a girl in early childhood and functions more in the role of a woman in adulthood. And it's just the opposite for the fourth gender, where they were born biologically female but function in the role of a boy in early childhood and matured into a man and conducts their life in that gender identity.
In our tradition, in the Western European tradition, we tend to think of gender as pretty neatly divided between male and female, starting with Adam and Eve. And many world cultures, including many Native American cultures, don't have such a neat division. There is some movement back and forth between genders related to both the way people present and the way people relate to each other sexually. We think we know that there's a typical male and a typical female, but the fact is almost everyone diverges from those typical qualities.
In Western culture, when I say a girl, there's automatically an assumption that girl is female. And the same with a boy. If I say boy, well, that's a boy. We never pause to think that, could that boy be a female?
We're in a many-gendered world, and getting out of this gay, straight, heterosexual, homosexual, binary dichotomy, which has been made up.
I like to dress up like this every day with jewelry and show that I'm a proud Native American, because you never know who's looking at you. My presence might change somebody's social behavior towards somebody else.
It is nice to be accepted and not simply tolerated, because I don't like when people, oh, well, we tolerate, we're tolerant of gays, of you two-spirit, Thanks for tolerating, but no thanks, I just want to be a part of a group as I'm supposed to be.